Chapter 11. Day 4 of our visit. Why Mother Left. Suddenly, Mother started laughing about something on television. Feeling tensed, I was nervously trying to find a way to ask my mother about why she left. Feeling afraid of her rejecting my inquiry, I began by saying, "So you'll never tell me? I really want to know. You don't think you'll ever share?" Somehow she understood exactly what I was trying to say. She responded, "I'm a private person." Desperately trying to appease her with hopes she would open up and begin to give me the answers I needed, I replied, "I'm the same way. In fact, a lot of your children are the same way." "Are they?" she said. Still feeling extremely petrified, I rambled. "So, I totally understand that. Yeah, but, I just really want to hear from you. Because I've heard a lot of stuff. But I just want to hear from you." She said, "Right." I continued, "I feel like I know. I just want to hear you say the actual words." Mother had a nervous look on her face as she pointed at the woman who was working in the office. "Can she hear us?" I asked. She replied, "When we be on the phone, she eavesdrops and then she will gossip. So I don't want to come right out with anything, By now I was feeling extremely discouraged. I responded timidly, "Oh, okay. That's why I thought we could talk since I'm here, and I don't know when I'll be back again. The next time I talk to you, it will probably be on the phone, and I know you will not be able to talk then. While I'm here, this is the perfect time, and if you can't talk now, then I guess it's kind of like a now or never situation." Mother laughed. "Now or never." Unsure of what was funny, I told her, "That is how I feel." She said, "That's the name of a song." I responded, "Yep. Maybe we can go outside and talk." Mother totally disregarded my request to go outside. Looking up at the television, she asked, "That's the movie we saw last night, isn't it?" "Yes, that's the same one," I said. By that time, it appeared I would be going back to Kansas City without my concerns being satisfied. I knew once we left, I would never ever get the answers I needed so badly. I was feeling sad and disheartened, yet frustrated. The thought of leaving without hearing her story devastated me. One of my 2 desires for returning had been met, but it seemed I would carry the other one for the rest of my life. As I basked in my feelings of desolation, my mother made a humorous comment about a commercial that came on television. Feeling hugely embarrassed about what was happening, I looked over at Erica, who had been quiet the whole time, and saw her eyes were teary. Finally, she said something. "Miss Geneva," she said, "I know I don't know when we are going to see you again. I respect your decision not to share. I want you to know that there are a lot of us that have questions about our past. Who we are, where we came from." "Right," said Mother. Erica continued, "Why we are the way we are. I know that some of the things my mom has been told has been hurtful to her. She's been told that you didn't want her. But we don't know. It's like we just have questions." "Yeah," Mother agreed. Erica continued, "If there was anything that you did feel comfortable sharing, could you share something that you do feel comfortable with? Just anything that is true so that we can fill in some holes, fill in some gaps?" It was obvious to me that Erica's plea genuinely touched my mother's emotions and caused her to understand how important it was for her to open up and share her story. It was at that point that I think my mother realized we had no intentions of leaving without the answers I needed. Seeing the change in my mother's countenance caused me to feel so very grateful that Erica was there with me. She knew exactly the right words to say and how to articulate them in a way that pricked my mother's heart. "Right. Well, Mother said. Seeing she was ready to speak freely, I said, "We can go somewhere where it is quiet if you want." Mother reverted, "Are you sure my husband is dead?" She was referring to my father. I was feeling like, even though my mother was prepared to share, she was afraid to begin for fear my father could be still alive, for fear he would be upset with her for telling me her side of the story. In response to her concern, I said, "Yes, I am sure he has passed away." I stopped for a moment, trying to contain my emotions. "He and grandmother told me you left and you did not want me. But even if that was the case, I forgive you." Mother laughed a grateful laugh, as if she was relieved to hear me say that. I continued, "But I just want to hear the story from you, that's all." Mother took a deep breath as if she tried to brace herself for what she was about to reveal. "It all began before you were born. I would often feel tired from taking care of the 5 kids your father and I had together. He would go out of town for work, leaving me alone with them for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. I told him I needed a break from the kids. Clearly, it was hard for her to delve into her emotions and relive all of those unpleasant memories, but she was doing it for me. From her story, coupled with things I already knew, I gathered that she had already been in and out of mental facilities several times before I was even born. I had concluded that she was a patient in a mental hospital at the time of my birth, and that my father had taken me home from the hospital. If he had not, the state of Michigan would have taken custody of me and I would have likely gotten adopted, just like the additional 4 children she had after she left us. Somehow, between her hospital stays, our family ended up in Kansas City, where she experienced her final mental hospital stay before leaving our family for good. Her story was somewhat choppy, so I had to piece things together. Nevertheless, I felt happy and relieved that she was finally opening up. This was the moment I had been waiting to have with my mother. I was basking in it as I listened intently to every word she had to say, even if the story was rather difficult to follow. She continued, "My husband and my mother arranged to have me put in a hospital. They told me it was a regular hospital that would help my body rejuvenate and give me some rest from the kids. After I was admitted, I found out it was a mental hospital. Your father thought it was just a normal hospital. He didn't know it was a mental hospital, you know?" Hearing her say this, I felt reasonably sure he knew, but he and my grandmother just had to trick her into going because she may not have cooperated otherwise. I also felt reasonably sure that she was likely suffering from the symptoms of her mental illness during that time, and that was why they tricked her in that manner. She went on, "I had a good upbringing and a good relationship with my mother and my husband. They didn't really talk to me about personal stuff. They kept it to themselves. I really didn't know much either around that time. He didn't talk to me that much. He was nice to me. He just wanted me to feel better." She recalled being in the mental hospital and no one ever coming to see her. "He stayed away. My mother came only one time and she brought Denisha with her, and that was it. I was in that place for 2 years with no visitors." Hearing that part of her story, I tried to put 2 and 2 together. I thought, she is saying she was in a mental facility for 2 years with no visitors just before she left. However, I was 2 years old when she left, and I have several specific memories of her being at home during the 2 years that she was claiming to have been locked away with no visitors. I told her, I specifically remember you being at home. I would come home on furlough, she said. Hearing this part of her story brought back a vague memory that I had been carrying. I was a toddler, and my grandmother had driven me to the hospital where my mother was a patient. Anxious to see her, I was heartbroken when we arrived and I was not allowed to go into the area where her room was. Memories of why were not clear, but my devastation was vivid. I realized that Mother was doing her very best to share only the things she was comfortable sharing. I also realized she could possibly be confused about the order in which some of the events took place so long ago. I tried to refrain from thinking she would be purposely lying to me. Even if she was, I would still be understanding towards her because she has every reason to experience feelings of shame about the details of her past life. She alleged, "There is a lot I don't know. I did not have a chance to talk to my husband before I left the mental hospital with my friend. He said he had family in another town, so that is where we went." As she was telling me that part of her story, I was thinking about how my father and grandmother told me she had professed, "I'm in love with Calvin," just before she ran away from the mental hospital. "Did you at least say goodbye to grandmother before you left?" I asked. "Yes, I told her bye-bye." She said a few more things, then ended that part of her story by saying, "And that's all I know." Although some of her story did not add up or match what I had always believed, I was still very appreciative that she had shared it with me. I told her I understood everything she had just expressed. I mentioned that I remember my father hitting her a lot. "Do you remember that?" I asked her. "One time, we were on our way to church. Your father hit at me. He was angry about something, but never explained it to me. He just hit me, you know? And that's all it was." I told her, "I remember him hitting you, and it was not right. I don't care what your mental state was. You did not deserve to be hit. Ever." She started talking about the people upstairs on the 3rd floor again. From my time with my mother, she usually starts reverting to the 3rd floor to avoid dealing with the reality of painful memories. I believe the people upstairs were actually voices she was hearing in her head. However, she did not perceive the voices as being in her head. She believed they were in the same house with her, but on a different floor in the boarding home. I was hoping she still had more to tell me about her story. On the other hand, I was hoping she was feeling at peace about having opened up about things she had been keeping to herself for so many years. I assured her, "You can tell me anything. There is not anything you could tell me that would surprise me. I feel like I pretty much know the details surrounding why you left, but I just need to hear it from you." Again, she reverted to talking about the voices from upstairs as an attempt to bring her focus back to our talk. I asked her some questions. "Do you remember telling my father you were in love with Calvin?" She said, "No, the people upstairs told him that." "Do you remember saying you did not want your kids?" "No, I never said anything like that. I was away from them for a long time. One time, I was in a mental hospital and the staff told me, 'Your family is here.'" Mother's face displayed a look of distress. "But they never told me where you all were, and so I never knew what had happened to my family." She looked down in sadness. I was unable to place the exact time frame of that incident, as she seemed confused about exactly when it had happened. "Do you ever feel angry with my father for hitting you?" "Besides the tap on my hand on our way to church, he treated me good. There is nothing for me to be angry about. He was nice to me otherwise. But it could have been something that was going on away from me, and He didn't want to tell. She continued, "We were on our way to church and he just spanked me on my hand like that." She tapped me on my hand to show me how he had hit her. Her recollection of my father's abuse was very surprising to me because I specifically remember my daddy beating on her. Furthermore, he never denied it. He specifically said he had to knock some sense into her. It seemed to me she was in denial and was making light of and excuses for my father's actions. I told her, "I remember standing outside of your and his bedroom and hearing you crying as he was striking you. I would feel heartbroken. You did not deserve that." She said, "He was nice to me, you know. I taught my children to love their father, and they did." I had spent many years thinking she had left because my father beat her, but her responses to my questions made me feel like that was not the reason at all. In her mind, he was good to her, and she had no reason to be angry with him. This left me with a new question. "So, do you remember what caused you to leave?" I asked. She answered in these exact words. "Let's see, how did this start? It's been a long time. Oh yeah, we went to... After I was in the hospital for a while, they sent me on a plane to go to Kansas City where my mother was. And so after we stayed there for a while, he had a house there. And so let's see, all the kids, they were happy to see me and we were happy together, you know? Really, they loved me and I loved them. So I was pregnant with you. And so I had to go to the hospital and have you, and I interjected. I had ordered my birth records, and it looked like my daddy took me home from the hospital. It appeared you did not take me home." She said, "Right, and I was in the hospital too. They never talked to me about anything." "Were you in a mental hospital at the time of my birth?" She said, "Yes." I told her, "I thought maybe that was the case, and maybe that was why you were not able to take me home." She mentioned the people upstairs again. Then she mumbled something about my father still having their marriage license. It seemed like she was saying she was not sure if she and my father were divorced. "Do you think you and my father are still married?" She said, "Yes." "After you left, the court granted him a divorce without you since you were not there anymore." Most of the questions I asked her were based on negative memories and experiences, and I expected her to tell me she left because she was being beaten or that she was hurting, or perhaps because she was angry with my father or my grandmother. But none of those were the case. She told me, "I didn't really know too much about the negative side because I was not around to know about it. All I knew was the positive side of the life I had with my family." She admitted she left with Calvin because my father never came when she was in the mental hospital. "Did you and Calvin get married?" She said, "Yes," and told me the state where they were married, which explained why I was never able to find a marriage license for the two of them in the states where I was searching. I had no clue that Mother had ever been in the state where they actually got married, so I had never searched there. By now, it was clear that I had finally fulfilled my mission of hearing my mother tell me her story of why she left. For so long, I felt like my mother had abandoned her family. However, after listening to her side of the story, it seems her family may have abandoned her long before she ever left. I have been feeling rejected for all of those years, and it seems she may have, in a sense, been feeling rejected too.
If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.